This is the story of a spooky, very nice, very evil wrestler who spent years protecting his own brand, and now the biggest wrestling company in the world is doing it for him. On March 13, 2026, WWE filed to trademark 4 new terms: Girlhausen, Ghoulhausen, Kidhausen, and Kidhausen, all 4 built around one name, all 4 pointing to one character, and all 4 telling us something worth paying attention to about where WWE sees this going. Before the trademarks make sense, you need to know who Danhausen actually is, because if you were one of the confused fans at Elimination Chamber 2 weeks ago, a lot of this is going to click into place. Donovan Danhausen was born in Detroit, Michigan on August 17, 1990, trained by Jimmy Jacobs and Truth Martini, and made his pro wrestling debut on October 18, 2013. The character runs on a spooky, comedic engine, signature face paint, a cape, and a bit where opponents get cursed by being trapped inside jars of teeth. Catchphrases are "very nice, very evil," and "love that Danhausen." And for a specific kind of wrestling fan, the whole package lands like nothing else on the roster. What separates Danhausen from most independent wrestlers, though, is how seriously he treated his own intellectual property before any major company came calling. His ring name? Trademarked. Love that Danhausen, trademarked. Very Nice, Very Evil got its own filing on August 26, 2021, covering hats, shirts, socks, bandanas, and hooded sweatshirts. His attorney, Michael Dawkins, nicknamed the gimmick lawyer for how frequently he works with wrestlers, believes the face paint trademark alone may be one of the first times any wrestler has protected their physical appearance as intellectual property. None of that happened by accident, and none of it happened after a big contract arrived. AEW came in January 2022 with his debut on Dynamite Beach Break, and despite spending limited time in actual televised matches, Danhausen consistently ranked among AEW's top merchandise sellers throughout his run. The fan base built around him was real, the demand was real, and the revenue followed even when he wasn't appearing on screen. The torn pectoral muscle in 2023 pulled him off television entirely, and by 2024 he had disappeared from both AEW and ROH programming altogether, with his final AEW appearance coming at All in London in August of that year. When August 2025 arrived, he requested his release, and AEW said no, extending his contract into early 2026 to recover the injury time he'd missed back in 2023. While that contract played out, he stayed active on the independent circuit, and once he was free, WWE moved. The debut landed on February 28, 2026, at Elimination Chamber inside the United Center in Chicago. For weeks beforehand, WWE had been building toward it, with a large wooden crate appearing on both Raw and SmackDown, carrying instructions not to be opened until February 28. WWE reported to take considerable steps to keep his identity hidden, so nobody in Chicago could spot him before the event. When Raw GM Adam Pearce and SmackDown GM Nick Aldis finally opened a crate, a coffin sat inside, and out from that coffin came a procession of dancers wearing his face paint, including his wife among them, followed by Danhausen himself in the cape. The crowd reaction landed somewhere between confused and cold, and the boos that filled the United Center were hard to explain away. Jim Ross put it plainly on his podcast: "I was nonplussed, underwhelmed. He's a good kid and his heart's in the right place, but to be honest with you, I just thought it was underwhelming." That assessment matched what people inside WWE were saying too, but here's the thing, the reaction backstage wasn't panic. According to Fightful Select, most within the company acknowledged the debut had flopped, but what they kept pointing to was that the situation didn't rattle Danhausen, and he responded well, and the 2 weeks that followed backed that up. Appearances on both Raw and SmackDown, curses placed on Dominic Mysterio, El Grande Emeritano, and The Miz, with Dominic losing the Intercontinental Championship after getting cursed. As recently as the March 13th SmackDown, Danhausen cursed The Miz ahead of a Miz TV segment featuring Jelly Roll, which ended with Jelly Roll accidentally knocking Miz out entirely. Crowd reactions to his segments have reportedly been warming since the debut. No in-ring WWE match yet, and internally he still carries the status of free agent rather than assigned talent, but the company is clearly building towards something, which brings everything back to those 4 trademarks: Girlhausen, Ghoulhausen, Kidhausen, Kidhausen. The filings cover entertainment services, meaning live wrestling, television, streaming, and online content, and merchandise that gets specific enough to include clothing, outerwear, footwear, headwear, bandanas, wristbands, and Halloween and masquerade costumes. For a character whose entire identity runs on a spooky aesthetic, that last category on the merchandise list is not a coincidence. The names themselves deserve a closer read: a female variant, a supernatural variant, a kid-friendly variant. WWE isn't just locking down the Danhausen name, they're building an architecture around it and planning for multiple versions of the character to exist. Sean Ross Sapp noted before the signing that WWE's marketing teams could make serious money on Danhausen, and that the company wouldn't have R-Truth filling the comedy wrestler role forever.
These 4 filings, arriving 13 days after his debut, are the first concrete evidence that those marketing conversations turned into action. The full picture comes together like this. A wrestler from Detroit spent years building his brand carefully enough to trademark his own face paint, survived a serious injury and a denied release request, and walked into his WWE debut in front of thousands of people who had no idea who he was. The debut landed flat by almost any measure, and 13 days later, WWE filed 4 new trademarks built on variations of his name, covering merchandise categories that include Halloween costumes and signaling character expansion on a scale that doesn't happen for someone the company plans to forget about. The debut may have been underwhelming. The trajectory points somewhere else entirely. Danhausen is very nice, Danhausen is very evil, and apparently Danhausen is very much part of WWE's long-term plans.